Hey, what's up? Liron here. So I've been getting quite a lot of messages that sound similar, and that is people want to learn how I was able to continuously improve in watercolor painting. So I want to do this video in a very conversational way and give you a couple of tips. It's going to be 5 to be exact, but I don't want it to be the clickbaity 5 tips for, it's not going to be anything explosive. It's just kind of 5 things that I thought of that have really helped me during the last 4 or 5 years of watercolor painting to continuously improve and to continuously feel uncomfortable with the medium, because when you push yourself to try out new things, you feel uncomfortable. If you're kind of settled in and you just do your routine, maybe you're just plateauing, maybe you're doing the same thing. I don't know. For me, that's at least how I feel. So let's talk about some of these things. I wrote it down for myself. I think the first and number one thing is master studies. Okay, it's not necessarily the first thing you want to do when you start painting, but it is something you want to start doing very early on. And a master study, as you may have seen in some of my recent videos, is you take a painting by someone you love their style, you aspire to have something similar, not identical obviously, and you try and recreate it. Okay, now the focus with master studies isn't on creating a one-to-one replica. That's impossible due to the nature of watercolor painting. If you're working a different medium, it may also be a little impossible. You can't imitate every brush stroke the artist does, but what you can do is get into their head and figure out why they did things the way they did them. Why did they decide to do this kind of composition? Why did they decide to flatten everything out and turn the scene into something that's very foggy and misty? Why they decided to get rid of some highlights and flatten everything down? Or, there's a lot of things that happen behind the surface. Now, even if you can't think of it logically, just by doing, you will realize what they did. And you will learn it, and you may be forced to try a new technique you haven't used, or a new way of doing things, a new work order or process that you're not used to, in order to imitate their work. Maybe they work in a more detailed style than you are, and you have to be more careful than you usually are. Maybe they work in a looser style, and you have to be able to let go more than you're used to. It's just gonna challenge you, and I really think with this you want to be selfish and go for the artists you love the most, just that you'll enjoy imitating. Okay, and again, the goal isn't to imitate every single thing, but to get into their mindset. I cannot explain how much this helped me. I can't explain it enough. And one more key to this point is be sure to imitate a variety, and I love the word imitate because it has usually negative connotations. Imitate or do a master study of a variety of artists of different styles. Maybe someone's more of an urban sketcher, someone's more of a realist, someone more of an impressionist, someone's a surrealist. Go for everything, because the contrast will expand your horizons and will allow you to access these techniques. You may not want every painting of yours to be like that, but now you can do that if you want to. You can access that ability if you want to. Okay, so master studies are huge, and I tell my students at some point they get to a point where I'm like, okay, you got the basics down. Now all you have to do is just paint a lot, master studies a lot, and you will improve, because that's the point where it tilted and shifted for me from just struggling to just really growing fast. Okay, so master studies, that's the first thing I did want to mention. Now, next we're talking about techniques. Techniques are an important part, okay? It's probably the first thing you'll start working on. And when I say techniques, I don't talk about anything fancy. I talk mainly about the water to paint ratio and timing, okay? Just to learn how water and paint relate to one another, work together, okay? I know Stan Miller, artists like him, say just match the value, do an accurate drawing, you'll get a good result. The techniques don't matter, put the paint to paper however you want to do it. But for me, I will say that I don't even talk about anything fancy. It's just getting an even wash, but I do a technique. What I would consider a technique is matching the value. That's a technique. So if you got that down, you got a lot of experience under your belt to tackle a lot of subjects. Okay, so techniques. You want to make sure you work heavy on them, and you use paint so much that it becomes second nature. You can already feel when you're going to do something you shouldn't and stop. You can already feel if you want the paint to look this dark, how much paint to mix. You can already feel that you don't have enough paint in your pool and mix a larger amount. It all becomes automatic. That's the technique side of thing, okay? The technical side of thing. And it's just pure practice and will. Power of will. I have a lot of videos on techniques and basics, so you want to check these out and just dedicate more time to doing them than watching them. Okay, you can't watch someone doing. You can't watch. You can learn from watching only. You have to try it out yourself. Okay, so that's the second thing. Third thing is free experimentation, and that's where the other side of the coin of master studies come. With a master study, we're very goal-oriented to learn from an artist. With a free experimentation, I want you to just be you and the reference and just try and paint it. Paint it however you want, and that's a key here. You want to paint it in whichever way you want. You want to allow yourself to use the techniques you learned, but you don't have to. Okay, you can just put the paint to paper where you see it dark, where you see it light, where you see it warm, where you see it cool. Just follow your intuition and let yourself kind of do your thing, because that's what will help you to preserve your authenticity and to keep enjoying it. And it will help you avoid putting yourself in a pigeonhole and just doing the same thing over and over and over again. I had some time periods of months here and there where I did do the same thing over and over without noticing, but then when I put an emphasis on free experimentation, it became a little better. So it's one thing you really want to pay attention to and allow yourself that freedom. Next up, and I'm gonna recap everything when we're done, is repetition, okay? Do not underestimate the value of painting the same thing over and over and over and over again. The reason I say this is that when in the first 2 or 3 years of watercolor painting, I would not paint the same scene again. And only in the last 2 years or so I started doing that, because I would be very bored by doing the same thing over again. What I didn't realize is that you need to take your enjoyment from the creation, the act of creating, the act of painting, the way water and paint behaves. It's not from their reference. So now I'm in a much healthier mindset when it comes to that, so I can paint the same thing over and over. I'll really enjoy myself. The beautiful thing about it is, again, due to the nature of watercolor and it being a little chaotic when you get started, you really will benefit from working on the same scene a couple of times, because in the second and third and fourth time you'll be able to let go more, enjoy the process more, and try out some new things spontaneously, and you will learn lessons from the previous attempts. Maybe you went too dark there, so you'll know for the next time, I don't need that strong of a dark value. Maybe the color harmony was completely off, and you want to try it out with different colors, okay? A lot of things you will learn subconsciously, without paying attention, without noticing, and you will take with you to the next attempt, okay? So repetition is valuable. Try and paint, especially if it's a beautiful scene you like, try painting it several times. You can do it one after the other, you can take a break, a day or two, a week, a month, it doesn't matter. I want you to tackle the same subject a couple of times and understand that on the first go, you won't get a perfect result most of the time, okay? That's really, sorry, weird hiccup. That's really important to understand. And lastly, the last point is painting outside. Plein air. I cannot explain how important this is. You could connect it with my point on freedom and free creation, and I call it free experimentation, because it really helps to generate that. But another thing it does is that it cleans any filter you may have. Meaning, when you paint from a photo inside the studio, you're using an artificial light, you're using a photo that's been edited, that's been cropped perfectly, so you know exactly what to paint, what to put in the frame. Even if you're changing things around, it's still not the same. When you're out there, you're out there. You have to figure out what you're gonna paint, how exactly you're gonna crop it. If you look at the bookshelves behind me, do I paint this section? Do I paint all of this section? You have to decide what you wanna paint. It's three-dimensional, it's not flat, so there's the added challenge of turning it into a flat plane of your paper. The color selection, it's not as clear. You can't really use a viewfinder outside. You can try, it won't be the same. It's just better. It's like increasing the volume on your instincts. You just make them higher and higher and higher and better, and you just perceive things differently. Okay, so that's a really, really, really important part of it for me personally, and I think anyone will benefit from it. Okay, so let's recap. The first thing I said was master studies, then I talked about techniques, then I talked about free experimentation, which you have to do, repetition, and plein air and painting outside, which will help you with that free experimentation. Now, a lot of people, just as a small point to end this, a lot of people are scared of painting outside. Trust me, it gets easier like after once or twice. You don't care about people looking at you, asking you questions. It will go away, it will subside. Plus, you don't have to paint where there are people. You can go to the countryside, go to where it's almost empty. There's just crops and fields and paint there. You will get less looks, less questions, okay? Make it work for you. You don't have to make it hard on yourself. There's no reason to do that, okay? So these are my thoughts around how I was able to continuously improve. And every time I notice I'm feeling good about my paintings, let's say for a whole month, I know I'm in a problem because I'm not growing. So I think I'm gonna go through that cycle again, because the last month or so has been really good to me in terms of how I feel about my work, but I don't necessarily feel like it developed a lot, okay? So I wanna try and challenge myself more and get to that next level. So I hope these tips will help. This is kind of my short and long answer, depending on your perspective, on how I got how I'm continuing to develop as an artist and with watercolor. I will add one last point for real, and that is maybe you want to try after a couple of months or a year in one medium, another one, because the experience does translate, and it may develop your thought process and help you see things a little differently. Okay, so like me, I'm now dabbling in acrylics. Okay, that can be something that helps as well. There's tons of tips. Feel free to ask follow-up questions. There's a lot more I can say about this, so I will be happy to answer and address all of them. I want to thank you for real for watching the video. I really appreciate it, and I couldn't have done any of the things I'm doing if it weren't for you. So thank you so much, and I will see you again in the next one real soon.